Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app and use promo code CHGO when you sign up. Happy Friday. I'm Jay Zawaski with Greg Boysen and Mario Tirabassi. We appreciate you joining the show with us today. Make sure you hit us up in the chat. We're going to talk a lot about Jonathan Toews. Before we get started, make sure you smash that like button on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page as well. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you. Make sure you're following or subscribed there, and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That would be greatly. I can talk. Helpful.
Greatly.
It takes you 5 seconds, and it helps us a ton. So feel free to leave a 5-star review. And keep in mind, when leaving podcast reviews, that a 4-star review is a 1-star review. So if you've ever been entertained by a podcast, leave them a 5-star review. Fellas, I feel like we just saw each other, so I'm not going to ask how you're doing.
Rude.
Fine. How are you doing, Mario? Mario needs to be out of his mood all the time.
Wow. Just shaming me for wanting to be a nice person.
Yeah.
We literally said goodbye like 11 hours ago. So
yeah. I saw your photo on social media today of the dog poop bag you launched onto your roof.
Yeah, that was yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What was the intended target?
It's like 12 feet below where it landed. I was so I was out with my daughter and my dog in the backyard yesterday, enjoying the nice weather, and had to make sure she didn't go by the dog poop. So I picked her up, and I picked up the poop, and she wanted to play. So I was like, all right, I don't want to walk all the way across the yard to throw this away, because she was just like pointing at her slide and being like, slide. I'm like, all right, we'll go to the slide. So I was like, all right, I'll just toss the poop over by the garbage can and deal with it later. So I one-handed tossed it. And as you see here on your screen, that is not a garbage can. That's the roof of my garage. And as soon as I let it go, I was like, you ever throw like a baseball or football or basketball, and like immediately when it leaves your hand, you're like, that's a bad throw. That was exactly what happened. I tossed it, and I was like half looking, and I tossed it, and I was like, that's not going where it should. And I just look over my shoulder, and I just see the huge arc going right over my roof, and then thud. And so I got to I gotta go retrieve that now.
My dog poop throwing accuracy is horrific. It's the physics behind, the heavier on the bottom. You're throwing it from the top, and then the bottom just swings out. I miss dog garbage shots all the time. It happens.
This bad though?
I've never put one on the roof. So.
That's pretty bad.
Well, I have. So yeah, I don't want to get I don't want to get any more dirty looks from my neighbors. So I gotta go get on the ladder and retrieve that.
You Kyle Schwarbered it and put it on top of the scoreboard.
Yeah, maybe I'll just leave it there.
Just put a glass box around it.
Yeah. Commemorate it. Yeah.
All right, so it's been a busy week for the Hawks as we're wrapping up the season here. We've got 4 games to go. And we mentioned at the end of last night's post-game show, Mario brought it up, that Jonathan Toews had some comments that he made to Mark Lazarus on Thursday. We're going to talk about those. But first, for some added context, Jonathan Toews met the media at the morning skate before the win over the Calgary Flames and discussed his future there. So I think these things kind of go together. And as we're trying to figure out what exactly Jonathan Toews' future is, which is the topic of this show, I know we're kind of Zapruder filming everything, but I feel like Jonathan Toews is kind of telling us without telling us. So let's hear from the captain from Tuesday's morning skate in Calgary, and then we'll react on the other side.
Given everything that you've gone through, mentally, physically, is the passion still the one thing that still burns for you in this game, or does it even take a toll?
For sure. there's definitely moments when it's hard to feel that, and it's hard to remember what it feels like to really enjoy the game and playing with that passion. But you just stay with it, and I think above all else, it's especially these last few months too, where I've been away from the team. It always gives you perspective to look back on things and notice what maybe you take for granted and the things that you miss when you're not playing. So I'd say that passion is definitely still there, and I think it always will be there. But I think it's just finding that every single day and finding that feeling of being able to be grateful for the ability to show up and be a part of your team every day, and it's just the simple things like that matter most.
So there you go. The way I saw that was, I think any athlete is asked about the passion, right? Like, do you still have it? And there's almost like a reflective response of like, yeah, of course. Like, you can't play without passion. But then you almost see him pause, and he's like, but, it's been kind of hard to find that sometimes. And, it's not always the easiest thing to do when you've been through everything. I don't know. It's just, I hate to like kind of like read into every little thing he says. But if you asked Jonathan Taves, 6 years ago, if he still had the passion, he'd probably stare a hole in you that would set you on fire. You know what I mean? Like, it's just to hear him this wishy-washy, and especially in the context of the quotes we're about to read. We'll get to those in a second. I don't know. I just feel like he's trying to almost talk himself into wanting to continue to play. Right? Like, it's almost like he's saying, I don't know if I have this anymore, but I'm going to do every damn thing I can to get this passion back. And maybe these last 4 or 5 games are going to be what does it for me. And just being around the guys is going to restart that fire, and I'm going to be back. But it just feels like every time he talks, more of the kind of like, I don't know, it's tough to get there. It's hard, and it's understandable, but it just feels like a guy who's trying to convince himself he still wants to go.
Yeah, I wonder if it would be different if this was happening to him in 2015, 2016, when this team was still a legit Stanley Cup contender. It's much easier to have the passion when you know you're going to make a deep playoff run. It's sounding a lot like the same manners of speak that we heard around this time last season, when he was kind of like, I don't know if I want to be around a rebuild, and I don't know how to be a captain on a losing team. That might have a thing for his passion as well as the health. But yeah, I think he certainly sounds like a guy that's like, well, I signed a contract to play through this year, and I'm a man of my word, and I'm going to do my best to honor this contract, and then we're going to see where we're at.
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, he's said it a number of times where he wants to, take in every opportunity he can to enjoy the game and enjoy life around the game. And he has said that it's not, he hasn't been able to do that. So yeah, I think, trying to read into, the tea leaves, it really does feel like he's kind of trying to savor what he can of this season. And look, it's a completely different atmosphere at the end of his career than I think maybe he imagined. I think he might have imagined a few of those, buddies from his cup days would still be around when he was winding down, but now it's just him. So yeah, I do think, I'm sure he doesn't definitively know what he wants to do yet. And he has said that his decision will likely happen this summer, whether he wants to continue playing another, however long, or that he's done with his playing days. But yeah, I think he's just trying to focus on, what do I still love about hockey, and can I physically do it?
Really good comment from Region Rev. I want to call attention to, she said it here a minute ago, about, processing the mental side of the game and the mental side of not being able to play anymore. And she compared it to like grief and loss. It says there's a huge difference between wanting to play and the ability to play. It's a grief, it's a loss. And that's true. I mean, Jonathan Taves has only known hockey his entire life, right? Like, that is his 90% of what makes Jonathan Taves is hockey. And to lose that, and especially without, not on your own terms, is sad. And anyone who's experienced grief or loss of any kind, and I know a number of us on this show have, it's not like this definitive, always feels the same sort of a thing. Some days you're sad, some days you're angry, sometimes you have happy memories, sometimes you're, and it's always sort of in flux, and it never really ends. It just kind of changes over time. And I know Johnny is a thoughtful guy. You can tell that he is answering all of these questions with care. And I'm not saying he's like measuring his words or he's trying to not tip his hand. I think that he's truly trying to answer these questions as honestly as he can, because I think he's looking for the answer himself. I think he wants the universe to tell him, you can keep doing this or it's time to quit. I really think that he does not truly know at this point. And the more he talks it out, just like anyone with any issue in their life, right? Talking it out is going to help you resolve things eventually, hopefully, right? And I think that's trying to do it. It feels like a guy trying to talk it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just going to be what his body tells him he can do, and if his body says, "Hey, we have one more NHL season left in us," then I think at that point it comes down to the mental side of things and what's the environment he wants to go into. Does he want to? While I don't think it's likely to be the case, if there was an opportunity to say, okay, one more year in Chicago, you retire a Blackhawk, I don't know what it's for, but does he weigh that option if it's there? Does he weigh the option of, do I go and play in Winnipeg for the Jets and play, close to my hometown and family and stuff? And, the Jets are looking like they're a playoff contender and probably could be again next year. Or does he say, like, if I'm going to do this, it has to be for what should be a deep playoff run? And does he go to Boston? Does he go to Carolina? Does he go to Edmonton? And play as a depth role, basically making like veteran minimum, and just being a guy along for the ride, playing in the most reduced role he's ever seen in the NHL? Like, there's a lot to contemplate for him. Or is none of that worth it because the physical toll is going to be too much and he's going to be doing more harm to himself than good? And if it doesn't end with a fourth Stanley Cup, what is it for?
And if you think about the grind of a Stanley Cup playoff run, is he physically capable of handling that? And I'm sure in his mind, he's like, am I going to go sign with the teams you name, Mario, right? These teams that are gunning for a Stanley Cup. And then come, March, he's like, I can't play anymore. I'm in misery. I'm in I'm racked with pain. I can't get out of bed. So I've done this. I've moved my whole life to this other state to go after this cup that I now won't be able to compete for. So I think let's use this opportunity in this conversation to advance to the quotes that came out yesterday. Jonathan Toews talked to Mark Lazarus of The Athletic, and we encourage you to check out the entire thing at theathletic.com. We're not going to read you the whole thing because it's not our work, but a couple of quotes really stood out. So, Lawrence, if you could cue those up. Here's Jonathan Toews on his plans following the season. Quote, right now, you asked me that question, and the honest answer is I got no idea. But at this point, I've realized there's no point in continuing to stomach this struggle. So if it's not a hell yeah, then it's a hell no. That's the one Mario referenced on last night's postgame show, where if he's not 100% all in, then he's not going to come back and play. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, with that knowledge, how does he get to 100% all in? I don't see a path to that for him.
No, he hasn't been 100% for 3 years. I don't see it magically happening in one summer. I think his body is telling him enough is enough. We need 20 years to recover from this, not 3 months. So I think he, as you said earlier, Jay, reading the tea leaves, reading between the lines. If I'm not 100%, it's not happening. I think he's kind of saying, because we know he's not 100% now. We know he hasn't been 100% for most of the season. that it took him, 2 months plus to recover from the flu. So that tells me you're not 100% and probably not going to be. Like when your body, like we're still learning about the effects of the long COVID and we're still learning about his condition. I don't think he's going to wake up in September and all of a sudden be, you know what? I feel great. I feel like I'm 28 again. Let's do this. I just don't think that's a reality. And I think he kind of knows that, but he's giving that option, for whatever reasons, maybe for his own, mental ease, maybe not to just flat out say it and be a distraction these last few games or what. But I if he says I have to be 100% is the only way I'm playing, these are his last 4 games.
Yeah, and it's not just 100% physical; it's 100% mental too.
And there's obviously a strain there in that department too. And that department is worse physically. If you're struggling mentally, that's worse struggling physically, because when you struggle mentally, it affects you physically. You can be perfectly physically healthy, but you just don't want to do it because your brain is saying has got you in a different place. Depression, anxiety. It's something that I go through on a daily basis. And there are days where you just don't want to do anything. And the mental aspect of it is probably bigger than the physical aspect, because this is a guy that was an elite athlete, one of the best to ever do it here in the city, greatest captain of all time, all the accolades. And that came naturally to him. That was what he did. That's who he was. It was his identity. It's who Jonathan Toews is a world-class hockey player. And when your body says, no, you're not a world-class hockey player anymore, that affects you mentally, because that's all you know how to do. And all of a sudden you got to start thinking about, well, what am I going to do now? Now, Jonathan Toews is in a much different situation than a lot of players who play professional sports in any sport. When they get to this point, Jonathan Taves is going to have whatever Jonathan Taves wants to do in the world of hockey. He's going to be allowed to do it. Where players who are fringe players who are having 14, 15-year AHL careers, when they're done, it's like, well, maybe I got to go to night school and finish that accounting degree and go get a real job. Jonathan Taves doesn't have to worry about that. He can do whatever he wants.
He's got generational wealth too,
Yeah, he's set. He can do whatever he wants. If he wants to disappear and start a kale farm and never be seen again, he can do it. And God bless him if that's what he wants to do. If he wants to be a scout, a general manager, a coach, an announcer, a studio analyst, the doors will be open for him. But it's still, when you've been a hockey player for 80% of your life, and now you're faced in the mirror that you can't do that anymore, regardless of whatever he can have whatever opportunity he wants, it's still a very tough pill to swallow. And I think that's what we're seeing with him, is a guy that's like, I know the right decision, I just not quite ready to make it yet. So I'm going to give this one last shot, and then I'll probably make that right decision.
That's a really good point. That leads us to the other quote that we're going to use from the Athletic piece. If you could throw that up, Lauren. She says, there's more to life than hockey. So it's a weighing of my options and what feels right. All these years, hockey's been the one thing. There hasn't been much else in my life. And part of me is seeking some balance. So I guess we'll see. So that's an acknowledgement. That's what he's saying. All these years, hockey's been the one thing. Part of me is seeking some balance.
Yep. I mean,
I feel like he's saying it without saying it.
Yeah.
Greg, your point of I don't want to be a distraction and say I'm retiring, so it's all the accolades are on him and video tributes and all that. Maybe he just doesn't want that. It's not in his personality. He doesn't want it, and maybe he just announces it whenever, at the draft or whenever.
He announces it post game after the Flyers game.
I just don't feel like it.
If we're sitting there and it's post game show and Luke is in the press room, and in comes Jonathan Toews, it's gonna be like, oh, okay, what have we got here? So, I don't think it will be that soon. I think he legit will start some off-season normalcy.
Yeah. And
then, when it's August, when it's time to start ramping up, and he'll see how his body goes. Or I think that's how I honestly don't think when he says I haven't made up my mind, I believe him. I think he knows the direction it's headed, but he's just not quite ready to fully admit that that's what's got to happen here.
Yeah, I think when you have decisions like that, and you feel a certain way about that. It's just like, you know what, the door isn't completely shut, but I got my hand on the handle, and it's pretty much going to be closed pretty soon. So I think for Taves, you know, he's always seemed to have had some interests in his world outside of hockey, and I think as his career progressed and you know, he got older, and I think you know, those started to intensify more, and now I think he's probably been faced with, you know, the idea of life after hockey for more than a year. You know, it wasn't like he came into this year thinking, well, retirement is probably what the, you know, the end of the road is going to be this year. But I think as the season has gone on, that, you know, that picture is probably getting a little bit bigger. And he has said, you know, he's talked to former players. He's talked to, you know, his former teammates about, you know, what life is after hockey. And I know, he mentioned, you know, after the Legends Cup was played, you know, a couple of his former teammates were a part of that. Andrew Shaw, Brian Bickle, Adam Burish were all there, and he said that he talked with a few of them, and that he's had conversations with them about, you know, when the playing career ends. So I you know, it's definitely something that's on his mind, something that he's considering and getting, you know, kind of some clarity about. And yeah, I mean, this is Jonathan Toews, who his identity has been being the Blackhawks captain and being one of the top players in the NHL for a very long time. You know, he doesn't have a you know, a budding family. Is, you know, it feels like, you know, maybe that, like, trying to find balance in my life, that kind of comment might be like, hey, I what can I do with my time without hockey filling it? And you know, it's a guy who's kind of got to become a little bit more normal in the world, and not necessarily, you know, this living in a professional athlete bubble.
Yeah. And remember too, the other thing is, when he came back, you know, a couple weeks ago, whatever it was, and he spoke for the first time and said, it takes me, like, I spend part of my off season thinking about how long can I put off getting ready for hockey before it's too late, because that's how hard it was. And remember, earlier this year, we were talking to people who were telling us he came in like with a high body fat count and significantly overweight and not doing well on all the fitness stuff. And what we found out a couple weeks ago is he had to wait. He had to wait to ramp up his offseason because he just felt so bad and didn't want to. He knew as soon as he started working out hard, it was going to jumpstart the inevitable missing of time, you know, and that's part of the calculus for him too. So if he can't even start working until, I don't know, just throwing it out there, August 1st, I don't know what the actual date would be, but whatever, you know, that's a month after free agency begins. So our team's going to wait around to find out if they're going to have Jonathan Toews or not. Like, there's so many moving parts to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like everything is pointing towards retirement. Everything he said, all the factors, everything that comes into it. And I do wonder about, like, you're right. Like, does he have a girlfriend? Like, when they do like the skates, I don't remember seeing any pictures of his, I would predict, blonde-haired, center-parted girlfriend as the rest of the team has. Like, there's a hockey player girlfriend,
a hockey type, yeah.
It's not a blonde with center-parted hair and
in that
tiny blonde, yeah.
Mm-hmm. In that athletic piece, it's mentioned, like, he's gonna, you know, consult with his girlfriend and his family and all that about what he wants to do once the season is over. So yeah, I mean, he's involved with someone. Good.
Well, whatever. Good for him. You think about a guy like that who is like the term persnickety, right? Like, where it's kind of like everything has to be just such with him. Everything has to be, you know, he's very serious all the time. He's probably one of those routine guys. And when that routine gets muddied, it can really mess things up for him, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. I think we all agree on this too. And I think everyone in the chat would agree too, that, like, we just want him to do what's best for him. You know, like, if he wants to come back and play for the Hawks for a year, fine. It's not going to hurt anything, right? It's not going to screw up the tank or, you know, propel them into a playoff spot or hurt anyone's development. But it's just like he said the other day, to what end?
Yeah.
You know?
And he definitely doesn't seem like the kind of guy that wants the Derek Jeter, Albert Pujols, full season send off. Everyone give me gifts. Everyone wave at me on the road. Kind of like, this is the one last dance of Jonathan Toews next season, and everyone gets to see Jonathan Toews one more time. It doesn't seem like he's that kind of guy. Because if he was seriously thinking of retirement and considering that, I think he probably would have said it already. And these final few games would officially be that final tour. And I just saw someone in our chat earlier. I want to get it here. I think it was Jason T. Said, haven't been to a Blackhawks game in a while, but made sure to get tickets. Yeah, make sure to get tickets to see the final game against Philly just in case. And yeah, I would encourage other Blackhawks fans to probably do the same thing. If you can find tickets, go to Game Time and get yourself the best seat possible to that game on Thursday, because it may not be his final game ever, but I'm 99.99% sure it's his last as a Blackhawk.
Yeah, so 24 on Game Time right now.
So if you want to be there to send him off one way or another, jump on that. That should be a sold out game. That should. Yep,
I'd hope so.
And if you are going to go to the game, make sure you're decked out in the best gear possible. If you're going to do that, if you're going to try and do that, check out our friends at FOCO, because you've already got the best coverage for all of your favorite teams. Now you can get fitted out with the best sports gear around from FOCO. They've got you covered from Soldier Field to the living room, from the north side to the south side, with hoodies, slippers, signs, bobbleheads, everything in between. You can get decked out like Jonathan Toews or Joey Anderson or whoever your favorite Blackhawk is, with all the apparel from the leader in sports merch and collectibles. That is FOCO. If you're looking for the perfect gift for the football fan in your life, because football season is right around the corner, FOCO's got you covered with hoodies to fight that Lake Michigan breeze. Hopefully we can pack the hoodies away pretty soon, because the warm weather is on its way. But with that, you can unpack those FOCO banana hammocks and get those ready for summer. So check out FOCO.com or click the link in the description below. And for all non-pre-sale items, you can use the promo code CHGO and you're going to get 10% off. Again, that's FOCO.com, FOCO.
And remember, DraftKings Sportsbook is the official betting partner of CHGO and ALLCITY. They've got those awesome NBA no-sweat same-game parlays. Major League Baseball is here. That's a lot of opportunities to wager. Check out every day. They've got different, same-game parlays and grouped together parlays that make it a lot of fun to keep the season entertaining as it goes on. Greg had a tough loss last night. I hate to bring it up again, Greg, but we're not going to make it. But he had a parlay that had it not been for JT Miller's pinball empty netter, Greg would have been rich and probably retired and bought a yacht somewhere.
Let's use his full name, Jerk Turd Miller.
But that's what makes those same game parlays so much fun, because you could throw down a little bit of money and win a lot. I saw a guy yesterday had a 19-leg parlay on DraftKings for the Masters, hit all of them, and it turned like I can't find the tweet, but it was like a $2 bet or something, and like $230,000. It was something completely preposterous.
It's insanity.
So if you lose $275. You win $200,000 if you hit a 19-leg parlay.
This putz hits a 19-leg parlay, and JT Miller screws me by banking one off the boards and into the net.
It's the beauty and the agony of betting there.
Yeah, that's truly what it's all about. So download the app now, sign up with the code CHGO. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, with code CHGO. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See the show notes for details. And I'm going to look real quick here and see if I can find it, because I swore I liked the tweet, but I'm probably not going to be able to find it. But man, it was a really impressive parlay. And I was very jealous that it wasn't me.
19 leg parlay on the first day of the Masters. That is someone who I envision turned on the Masters early in the morning, sat down on their couch, and then did not move until Masters coverage ended sometime around 7:00.
Okay, I found it. So it was a 19 pick parlay, and I'm assuming this is people to move on past the first round. It was plus 1,213,567. The wager was $175. The payout was $21,239.17.
So it was 19 people to move on past the first round.
I guess so. Because it's I don't know. I don't bet golf, so maybe you know better. All it says is a list of names. There's 19 names here, and after every name, it says R1, 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 R1.
Round one.
Unless he picked them in finishing order, there's no.
Because isn't the cut after the second round?
Yeah, cuts after the second round.
I don't know. Well,
yeah,
I don't know.
Crazy
like above all these guys under par for round one.
First round matchups. Oh, maybe the person to have the best score in their group. That could be. First round matchups parlay. Yeah.
Let me ask.
I will go to IG Griffins Robbins and see.
There you go.
Details.
And by the way,
it's shut off his Twitter account. He's got too many people asking him for money right now.
No.
Including the guy that owns Twitter.
Probably, let's see, probably blocked or private. Griffin Robbins. I don't know if this is the only Griffin Robbins. Let's see.
While we're doing that, we'll tell you about our DraftKings pick of the week.
I don't think
Frozen 4 final is tomorrow. Minnesota is minus 1.5 at plus 140 on the money line over Quinnipiac. They beat Boston University 6-2 yesterday. And if not for some early heroics by Drew Comesso, it could have been a lot worse. Minnesota is our pick for the DraftKings pick of the week at minus 1.5 plus 140.
Begrudgingly.
To take the Frozen 4 championship. So again, make sure you download that DraftKings app. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up.
I can't find it.
Yeah, that Minnesota team is pretty darn good.
Pretty good.
They made a really good Boston University team look foolish for most of that game.
Look slow.
Yeah, we mentioned a little bit last night, but since it was pretty much this morning when we talk about it, some of you guys may not have caught that, but man, Boston University had a week to play, a week or 2 weeks, whatever it was, long time to prepare for this game, and it looked like they were not prepared for their speed, which I don't know. That's a major misstep, but Minnesota, I think, they're going to be pretty good. I think they got a good shot at winning that game by more than 2. But you never know. Quinnipiac, they've got a lot of guys older than most Blackhawks on their team, and took down one wagon of a team. So what's one more for them? So we'll see.
They got Rod
College.
Say that again.
When did Jaromir Jagr enroll in Quinnipiac College?
He's still got eligibility left.
Yeah, he never played. He's still amateur. Well, getting back to our topic today about Jonathan Taves, and you mentioned a name a couple minutes ago, Mario, at that Legends Cup was Brian Bickle, and he looked good. I got to see him. We were standing in the tunnel waiting for Luke Richardson to do the pregame media because there was no morning skate that day, so they were all coming off the ice and walked past us. And Bickle looked good. He didn't look like he looked like pretty much the same way he did when he played. But I wonder if Taves has had a chance to talk to him specifically. And Marian Hossa, who he's close with. Like, those are two guys whose career did not end on their terms. They had to end due to health issues out of their control. And this is what Taves is facing right now. So I wonder if he's leaned on them for any kind of advice, or will lean on them. Hopefully those guys have reached out to him. Hopefully Hossa has. I know they have a good bond. So those are guys that can give him advice of like, hey, this is out of your control. You can't really, put too much mental anguish into something that you have control. Focus on the things you can control. And that's a lesson I learned in life when I was dealing with, my grief and the beginning of my sobriety was, hey, things that I can't control are not worth time and energy. So I need to handle the things I can control. So I wonder, I mean, we know guys like Taves and Kane still talk to Duncan Keith a lot. We heard Kane mention he got advice from Keith about playing for a different team. I'm sure there's been discussions about life after hockey now that Keith is removed from the game. So hopefully, you know, those guys, those teams had such a bond, and hopefully they're still bonded, and they're reaching out, or he's reaching out to them, and there's some open discussions about, because those guys I think can give him some really invaluable insight and advice to how to handle a bad deal. You know, that's what it is. You've been dealt, you know, a bad deck of cards, and sometimes, you know, sometimes when you're at the poker table of life, you got to look at your cards and fold them and hope the next deck is better.
Well, and look, if you read Host's book, he talks about the mental struggle of going through it when he was going through it, and even after the game, like missing the game and that being such a part of your life. But if you look at both those guys, to different extents, Marian Hossa is an international superstar, right? He is like a god in Slovakia, so he's got a little bit of a different life than Brian Pickle does right now, but they seem to be thriving in the things they're doing. You know, Hossa has started like a food distribution company that's doing great, right? And Brian Pickle's got his charities and everything that he's involved in, and they have found that purpose, and they have found that meaning, and that, you know, the competitive edge that these pro athletes have to get to that point in the first place. They're able to take that and move it to a different industry or a different business or whatever, and still apply that, right? And you talk, like, no one's ever questioned Jonathan Toews' intelligence, right? He has always been one of the more thoughtful, I think, hockey players that I've ever had the chance to cover. And whatever he puts his hands into, it's going to work, you know. And hopefully this, like, all this time off he's had from the entire missed season to the stuff that he's gone through this year has been that reflection time for him. And you're right. I hope these guys are reaching out and saying, hey, look, there is more to life than this. You're 35. Like, you're a kid. There's, like, you're just getting started, you know? And I know it's hard for these guys to look at it that way, but you are just beginning your life. Honestly, it's crazy that the thing that he's worked his whole life towards is going to be over at age 35, 36. Now he's got the rest of it ahead of him. And look at what Marian Hossa and Brian Bickle have done with that opportunity. I think that should be encouraging to him. I think that's something that he should look at and say, all right, they're not just sitting at home in a dark room, miserable and sad that hockey's over. They've applied their heart and their souls into something else, and it's worked for both of them.
Find something that you're just as passionate about as you were playing hockey, and then to take all that energy and put it into that. And then you'll start feeling better. You'll start feeling like you have a purpose, that you are still contributing, and you're still that star, just at a different avenue. And that can go a long way.
Well, last week, Taves was talking, and he said that he's actually had conversations with Brandon Sutter, who, not a former teammate, but a guy who has gone through something similar with difficulties with long COVID, and just basically had the same thing happen, where that dealing with that has kind of handed him the end of his career. So I think, you know, he is reaching out to guys and people who have had similar experiences. And yeah, I think, you know, as far as talking with Bickle and Hossa, and I'm sure he's, you know, talked with Seabrook and Andrew Shaw and all these guys who, you know, we've mentioned over the last few weeks in these discussions, that it was out of their hands, basically, that their careers came to a close, and before that they were expecting them to. So, you know, there are a lot of guys out there who have that similar story, and I hope that Taves is getting all of their you know, feedback and taking it to heart, which I'm sure he would, you know, given the relationships that he has with them, and, you know, the things that they went through.
Yeah, I mean, it is the good thing to know too is, you know, for the most part, I know it's hard to say the Hawks take care of their players in the eyes of what's happened to Kyle Beach and others, but the players that they deem important, like Jonathan Toews, will have everything he needs from New York too, be it mental health care, be it a job, be it whatever. If he wants to work, he's going to find a job, even if he's right there next to Chris Kunitz on the ice in practice, leading some things. Like he's going to be out there and he's going to have stuff to do. So I hope that makes this all easier for him, knowing that look, whatever I want to do, I'm going to get that. Like what NHL team, if the Hawks say no for whatever reason, if he's like, hey, I want to get involved in the front office, like the Hawks are going to tell him no,
right?
Like, come on, like the hockey world is his oyster right now. The only thing he can't do probably is continue to play at the level he sees fit. And I think that's the other thing too, is where there's some players that would be content with, all right, well, I'm not the player I used to be, but I'm just going to go out there and make some more money and do what I can. And that's just not Taves, like that scenario I painted where he signs with a contender and then finds out at the playoffs he can't do it. I think there's some other guys that would be okay with that. I don't know if Jonathan Toews is okay with that possibility even existing.
Yeah. There have been guys who have done that and found out that they can't play anymore, and they're just like, oh, okay, well then it's over. Like I don't think Taves would ever want to, go that route and say like, oh, I'm going to try it one more time, and then kind of, for I don't know, lack of a better term, crash and burn. I think he'd rather just be like, you know what, I'd rather go out with a little bit left in my tank on somewhat of my own terms than to completely empty it. I have nothing left to give, and I look like, just completely devoid of anything the old Jonathan Toews used to have. I don't think he would be the kind of person to want to go out that way.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of guys over the years, a lot of guys in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s that played for the Blackhawks were that type of guy. Used to be a name. I used to be somebody. But like guys like Mike Modano and Daniel Alfredsson playing that last season with the Red Wings, it was like, ugh. I mean, I know most people, when it's all said and done, people won't remember that. But it was still weird just seeing guys like that in a different uniform and then not being those stars. I mean, that's who you want, even though when you sign a 40-year-old Daniel Alfredsson, you're like, we're probably not going to get that Hart Trophy candidate guy, but it leaves a bad taste in your mouth when you see guys do that. But eventually people move on. I think people in Chicago have already forgotten Duncan Keith played a year in Edmonton, and that was a year ago. So,
yeah.
But you're right, Mara. I don't think Taves is that guy. I don't think he's the guy that needs to hang on to that spotlight as long as he possibly can. He's not Brett Favre. That's got to be, have the camera on him at all times. He's not that guy.
It's never been him.
No, he wants to win, and if he can't help a team win, I don't think he wants anything to do with it. He wants to be the captain. He wants to be the guy. That's his competitive edge. I mean, that's not that different from, Michael Jordan back in the day. He wants to be the best player when he's on the ice. And if he can't, I think he's pretty much told us, if I can't be the best player I can be, I'm not going to do it.
Well, the other thing too, and your point is right. Like he wants to be a guy that helps the team win. I also think the concept of him hurting a team's chances of winning would not sit well with him at all. Like if he sees it as I'm making things worse for this team, either salary cap wise or competition wise or performance wise or whatever, like that's something that to me that's unacceptable for Jonathan Toews. And he's sort of said that, like, I don't want to just come out here and just coast the rest. I could probably do it, but like he said, if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no.
Yeah. And how many? Oh, go ahead, Mario.
I was just say I don't think there's going to be many opportunities amongst contenders that would be willing to kind of roll the dice on him. Like, do you think he signs a 1 year, $1 million deal to be a fourth line center for Boston, and then he's really bad, or has to take 2 months off once it comes down to this time next year because he physically can't do it anymore, and then Boston's strapped for cap money. They don't have the Jonathan Toews that they thought they were going to have. Do you think Boston's going to be like, oh, well, it's Toews, whatever? No, he's not going to get that treatment at all. Yeah. So I don't know how many opportunities are actually going to be out there for him for contenders, because we can spitball like teams he could go to. These teams may have no interest in 50% Jonathan Toews.
No, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I don't think there's gonna be many people beating on his door, at least actual legit Stanley Cup contenders, because the concern has to be beyond legit for all these other teams to say, hey, even at $1 million or whatever, $2 million playing a reduced role, are we even going to get any kind of return on our investment come when we need him the most? And you want a guy like Jonathan Toews for the postseason. You want that faceoffs and that defensive play and that experience for the playoffs. And if he can't get there by then, I don't think any teams are really going to be, blowing up Pat Person's phone come July 1st looking for that. And I don't think he wants to be just a guy, and if he is, he signs in a place like Boston or New York or Toronto and he's bad, it's going to get eaten alive by the media. Here, he's had pretty much a free ride his entire career because he was great.
Yeah,
and he won championships right out of the gate. Nobody asked him a tough question his entire career. Maybe in the last couple years, but man, he had a free ride here. He was a god here. And even now, when he's not playing great, people still are like, we don't care. That's Jonathan effing Toews. He's our greatest captain in team history. If he only wants to play 8 minutes a night and score 20 points, I'm going to cheer him every time he's on the ice. You get that guy in Boston, they're going to boo him right out of the building. And why put up with that?
We just saw it with Patrick Kane in New York when he didn't immediately come and be, dynasty era Patrick Kane for the
one period into them. They were ripping him alive.
Yeah. And
now he's been scratched the last couple games because
he's getting
that injury.
He's getting maintenance days and he's getting scratched, and Rangers fans are not, they're not okay with it. So
yeah, that just breaks my heart. I hate to see that. I just hate to see that. That makes me more upset than JT Miller.
Whoa. That's a lot. It's $18.
That's very upset.
All right, before we get to our next spot break, we're going to tell you about some cool shades and how to save some money on energy. We want to give everybody a heads up. We are hosting here at CHGO 2 NFL draft parties. It is Thursday, April 27th and Friday, April 28th at Joe's on Weed Street. All tickets will include an all-inclusive premium drink package, including, of course, Goose Island beers and cocktails, VIP tables, reserved seatings. General admission is available. Tickets are on sale right now. Head over to allchgo.com for details. This is going to be an historic 2 nights for the Chicago Bears, and you're going to want to be there, and you're going to want to be there with our crew of Hogue and Corey Wooten and Carm and everybody. Everyone's going to be there both nights. It's going to be an awesome time. Allchgo.com is where you get your tickets. And remember, if you are a CHGO diehard, you will save 20% on the event and all events. And upon sign up, you get a free shirt or hat of your choice. It is a great deal. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a fun night. I am going to try to make it out there for one of them, depending on baseball schedules, softball schedules. But I'm going to be there in spirit if I can't make it. It's going to be a great time. Allchgo.com.
Yeah, Joe's on Wheat Street. I worked there a lifetime ago. In my very early 20s, I worked the door at Joe's on Weed. Nice. And if you go and Corey Wooten's wearing his awesome CHGO zip-up varsity jacket, make sure you compliment him on that. He looks good in it.
Yes, he does.
Well, Mario is segueing into my read here, and this is my first remote show from the new house in the new office, and I've got some nice windows right here, unlike my old office in the basement. I get some natural light, and I see blue sky, sunshine is out, and that is the perfect time to get ready for the warmer weather and the sunny days by looking up our friends Shady Rays. Take on the sun with gear that is built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered for the warm weather ahead with premium polarized shades at an affordable price. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good, scratch that, better than any expensive pair I've ever worn. Durable frames, extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures. I've been a customer of Shady Rays long before CHGO even existed. I love them. That they're the only place I get my sunglasses from. And part of the reason, not only do they look really cool, the optical clarity is amazing, but they also offer the most insane protection plan in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they fall out of the box and break. Shady Rays has told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. You can wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after you make your purchase. Plus, you're going to look great and you're going to do great things for others because together with their customers, Shady Rays is providing much needed support to nonprofit partners across the United States through the Shady Rays Impact Program. From building play sets to pediatric cancer patients to providing young adults with MS the outdoor adventure of a lifetime, Shady Rays is making an impact in your communities and others like it now and for years to come. So look cool and do something cool for others who really need it. If you don't love your Shady Rays, exchange for a new pair, or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back. And because they love our CHGO listeners as much as we do, Shady Rays is giving you their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use the promo code CHGO, and you're going to get 50% off every order for 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's buy one, get one free when you crunch the numbers and do the math. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people.
It's a lot of stars.
Yeah, it is a lot of stars. And
a million by my math.
Over 1 million.
Sure.
Yes.
See, this is why I don't do math.
And we've been talking a lot about saving energy and saving money, and the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities they serve, helping manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future.
Yes, ComEd offers a wide variety of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across their territories. ComEd also offers free facility assessments that can help find energy-saving opportunities like for HVAC systems, commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes.
Oh, that sounds incredibly interesting, those facility assessments. How do those work, Mario?
I'm so glad you asked, Jay. An authorized engineer will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan specific to your goals and needs. They can be done in person or virtually, and they last approximately 2 hours. And within 3 to 4 weeks, customers will receive a report detailing energy efficiency projects that they can start working on immediately. Each recommendation will include estimated energy savings, cost savings, project costs, potential incentives, and simple payback. If you own a business, don't wait. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy saving tips, lighting incentives, or to schedule your free facility assessment, go to comed.com/poweringbiz.
Okay, so I own a business. I have an LLC, and I'm looking to save on my energy costs. So it's comed.com/poweringbiz.
Yep, poweringbiz, BIZ. Get yourself on their books and schedule your appointment today.
I will do that as soon as the show ends. And before we wrap up, we're talking about great players who have gone to other teams, like Duncan Keith to the Oilers, Patrick Kane to the Rangers. Where did Alfredson go? You said it, and I forgot already. Red Wings. The Red Wings are a good dumping ground for guys like that. They had Mike Modano.
Yep.
Brad Richards went there.
Yes.
Yeah, like the Red Wings are a bit Olimata. We want to.
Yeah, Olimata
apparently
dumping ground. Yeah.
David Braun's been pretty good for them, but the old Hawks were just so perfect for that. Like, oh, Paul Coffey, huh? Look, we just signed Paul Coffey. Look,
Paul Coffey, Wendell Clark, Peter Bondra,
Phil Housley, right?
Peter Bondra scored his 500th goal as a Hawk.
Yeah, he scored 499 with Washington, but who's counting?
Doesn't matter. They were just man. The old Hawks were the kings of that.
Wendell Clark. Who remembers Wendell Clark as a Blackhawk?
Didn't he wear 71?
Yep, that was his number. Basil McRae came in for a cup of coffee. John Tonelli at the end of his career after winning 4 cups. Like there's the Hawks, the 90s Hawks were like, hey, this is a name people will recognize because he was good 10 years ago. Let's put him on the team.
We got to make a splash. Doug Gilmour was that guy.
Yeah, Gilmour was still pretty good. Fleury was past his prime. They even brought back Dennis Savard for that second run, which was tough to watch because he was not close to the same player.
Boy,
but
the Theo Fleury thing was such a disaster. I remember when I was working the pregame shows then, when they were on the Score had the Hawks when they were bad, and then the Hawks got good, so they got rid of him. And Theo Fleury came in like preseason, and I'm like, oh, I want to meet him. And I walked in, I'm like, this is not going to work. He was out of it. He was sweaty. It was like, and I guess from what I understand, like the guy they hired to handle him, like take care of his addiction issues, was like his primary dealer.
That usually doesn't work.
Yeah, it's counterproductive in my world.
It is so funny how far, I don't know if it's funny, maybe it's more sad, how far this organization has come from where they were 15 years ago. And even as we look at it now, how far they still need to go. But they have probably improved 200% from the Bill Wirtz era. And now there's still a significant room for growth. But my God, if you could go back, because I know a lot of our listeners like probably weren't on the Hawks before Kane and Taves, which is understandable because why the hell would you? You would not believe. You would not believe some of the stuff that you hear about the way the organization worked. I think it was it Jack O'Callahan? It doesn't matter because the story is what matters. Signed with the team. They gave him like a nice Blackhawks jacket, right, for the press conference. And then the press conference ended. They're like, give us a jacket back. He's like, I don't get to keep the jacket. No, give us the jacket back. That's ours. We're taking it back to Hawk quarters or whatever the hell.
I mean, there was a time and day where players had to buy their own equipment. They'd have to pay for their own sticks every time they broke a stick. It came out of their game check. That wasn't Lebowski 5 mentioned Bernie Nichols as one of those guys. Bernie Nichols was still really good when he was with the Hawks, man.
Not a good interview.
Ronick were great. Like he was still. I don't think he wasn't in his prime, but he was not that far away from his prime. Bernie Nichols had a couple of really good years here.
Well, I mean, you mentioned having to buy their own equipment. Billy Ray would buy player skates every year for Christmas. The head coach would buy player skates.
I remember as a kid going down like the weekend before training camp was going to start. My dad would take us to the original Gunzos because he knew, the Blackhawks are showing up to buy all their equipment for the year. This would be a good day to go browse. And you'd walk around and you'd turn the corner and there's Kurt Frazier buying his skates and you get an autograph. Or I think we met Troy Murray in there back in the day, Dirk Graham, all those guys from like the late 80s. If you went on the right day just before training camp, they'd be in there with their shopping list, what they need to buy with their own money to play hockey that season.
Now, see, this is an idea for an off-season show. We've got to find some guy from that era, and probably not Troy because he still gets his check signed by Wirtz, so he's probably not going to want to spill the beans. But somebody from that era to talk about what it was like, having to buy your own. And I know that wasn't like only the Hawks did that, but like if there was a corner to be cut, it would be cut.
I know exactly the guy to do it because I've talked to him about it. It is Minnesota. Wild radio color guy Tom Reed, who started his career with the Blackhawks. He actually has his first NHL contract with the Blackhawks framed at his bar right across the street from the Excel Center, so you could actually see it. I remember him telling me a story saying that first year with the Blackhawks with the broken sticks, he was late for a couple of meetings. Like he said, at the end of the season, I owed them $7. that's how often they would find a way to fine you. He said at the end of his rookie of the year, he actually owed the Blackhawks for playing them.
Tom Reed, also famous for, much like Marian Hossa, had a skin condition that forced him to retire. His colleagues called it, quote, the gunk.
The gunk.
Is the rashes where secretes a yellow liquid that sticks to a uniform or protective gear worn by a player. He didn't start experiencing it until his 8th season when he was advised by doctors to end his career because the steroids and cortisone shots he'd been taking would lead to fatal consequences. That is identical to what happened to Marian Hossa.
Yeah. Hossa was basically on like a chemo drug to play hockey.
I remember we put Tom Reed on the Score because of the Hossa thing to talk about that. And we made jokes that you can go to his restaurant and order the Rash Burger. It was one of the things available.
What was his nickname? Rash Reed.
Yeah. It was one of the things you buy at Tom Reed's restaurant.
Yeah,
not the thing you want to be known for.
Tom Reed, I'd love to get him on because he's got great stories.
Great, yes.
He's got an amazing story that he told me once that I cannot give justice, but it's about him borrowing Stan Mikita's car to take Peggy Fleming on a date.
That's awesome. Yeah, let's tell that story.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. All right, good. Show number 1 is
there we go.
Our guy Tom Reed.
Let's hope they, maybe the Hawks signed someone who was affiliated with the Wild at some point, and he's
going to be here Monday. Let's look for him in the booth on Monday. He'll remember me.
Yeah. That's true. He
was really good friends with Jill. They worked together at the Make-A-Wish Foundation when she was living in Minnesota. So we'll run it. I'll keep my eye open for him on Monday, and maybe we'll hit him up and see what he's doing. If we can interrupt some of his summertime golfing and fishing.
Yeah, that's plan. Awesome. All right, we're going to wrap things up. We are back tomorrow night, post-game, late night. We're going to be at home, but we're still going to be here, post-game show. So hopefully you'll join us late on Saturday. And we want to give you one final reminder that DraftKings Sportsbook is the official betting partner of CHGO and ALLCITY. Download the app and use promo code CHGO when you sign up. They are, after all, America's top-rated sportsbook. Anything to add before we wrap up, fellas?
No.
All right. Good stuff. Lawrence, you want to jump in? Anything to add? No, he left.
Enjoy your
it's a mailbag Monday.
No, sorry.
Enjoy your hockeyless Friday night. There are no games in the NHL schedule tonight,
games in the NHL.
And everybody plays tomorrow.
Brilliant work by the NHL.
And the national championship is also tomorrow. Yeah, so no national.
They're all in church for Good Friday today. That's
perfect night to keep up with all the CHL prospects. I think every CHL prospect is playing tonight. So
I'll say this: we have on the Bears show at 2:30 in studio today. Braxton Jones will be live.
With us. Nice,
nice. That's why we're at noon today. So.
That is right.
There you go.
Show up. He's going to hear it from us.
Yeah.
So make sure you tell Braxton that he owes us one for giving him our time.
You're welcome.
For sure.
Yes.
You're welcome, Braxton.
Hawks.
Yeah, he has to come on our show now.
Okay. I'll see if he likes hockey.
All right. Thank you, Lawrence. Thanks, everybody. Greg, Mario, I'm Jay. We'll talk to you tomorrow night on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.